Internet of Things by Aditya Palaniappan. Overview. Overview. What is the Internet of Things? In this presentation, I will be discussing the Internet of Things. I have several topics that I wish to cover in this presentation. They are, as you can see on the slides, what is the Internet of Things, examples of Internet of Things, how the Internet of Things works, history of Internet of Things, and the advantages and disadvantages of Internet of Things. And as a quick slide at the very end, I would like to discuss some of the future possibilities that we can do with the Internet of Things. So let's get on to our first topic. What is the Internet of Things? Before we can get into the more interesting parts of this, of the general concept of Internet of Things, we have to first define what it is. Unlike the term cloud computing, which was our previous presentation, the term Internet of Things may be less familiar to viewers. However, while this may be the case, the concept itself is just as simple as cloud computing. The term refers to tangible objects that have an IP address for Internet connectivity. When I use the word tangible, I use it to refer to common household items that we use every day. For example, like clocks, thermostats, and other things like that. Now, in the next slide, I will give several examples of some common appliances that use the Internet of Things. Many of these items are things that you would have never expected to be able to connect to the Internet. So, let's look at some of these examples of Internet of Things. As you can imagine based on the definition, many items that we use in our everyday life now fit the definition of the Internet of Things. Some of these examples are, like you can see on the slide, thermostats, cars, electronic appliances, lights in household and commercial environments, alarm clocks, speaker systems, vending machines, and many, many more. Basically, the Internet of Things is so vast and wide that we are trying to achieve an integrated house system where we can have all these things connected to each other. How does it work? I could imagine that some of the examples that I mentioned earlier may have surprised several of you. I know that it definitely took me by surprise. For example, I did not expect lights, thermostats, and vending machines to all be connected to the internet. This surprise led me to wonder how the Internet of Things works. So, the Internet of Things, or IoT, is filled with all the web-enabled devices that collect, send, and act on data they acquire from their surrounding environments. These devices can then communicate with other related devices. This communication process is called machine-to-machine communication. The machines receiving this new information can then act on the newfound information, and we as humans can interact with these machines in order to set them up, give them instructions, or access any data the machines may have accumulated. So basically, we as humans take a step back and let the machines communicate with each other and act on the data that these machines have received. So all we do is we just set them up and collect the information at the very end. These machines are now um, can now act on their own accord in order to achieve the goals that we have programmed them to achieve. The history of Internet of Things. So the first major invention of the Internet of Things was the barcode. While this may seem like a very recent development, the Internet of Things has been around a lot longer than I had anticipated. 1949 is when one of the first, earliest, and most enduring item conceived by the Internet of Things was born, the barcode. The patent for the linear barcode was filed in 1952, and after a little more than 20 years, George Laurer, an IBM employee, implemented its use by supermarkets. So basically, the 1949, someone had the idea of making the barcode, the linear barcode. I think they wrote it on some sand or something. In 1952, this barcode was then patented, and then around 20 years later, IBM employees started implementing them in grocery stores, and very quickly after, we used the barcode like we use it now, and we see it today. Then the next major invention was implemented by, once again, IBM. This is the vending machine. So, a lot of other smaller developments happened between the 1950s and 1980s with the Internet of Things. But if I want to mention every single one of them, we wouldn't have enough time, and I would have to go on for on and on and on. So this is the next major invention conceived by the Internet of Things. So, staff at the Carnegie Mellon Computer Science Department connected a Coke vending machine to their departmental terminal after installing microswitches to them in order to see the number of bottles in the machine and the temperature of bottles in the machine. The example of the Coke machine then led to the realization that many different types of appliances and equipment can utilize the advantages that the Internet of Things can offer us. So basically, they use the Internet of Things in order to monitor the vending machine. They could monitor stuff like the number of bottles that were still in the machine and like the temperature of the bottles. Like the temperature of the bottles that were also in the machine. So this helped indicate that the type of impact and power that the Internet of Things can have on society around us and how it can help transform to a more technological and advanced society. Advantages of the Internet of Things. As you can imagine, the Internet of Things has a lot of great advantages, and that's why we want to use it, and that's why we see such potential in its future. So the first major advantages of the Internet of Things is the enhanced communication between devices. As I mentioned earlier, this communication is commonly referred to M2M, machine-to-machine communication. This communication allows various departments to stay connected together and allow for greater transparency with less efficiencies and better quality. Another great advantage of the Internet of Things is the ability of automation and control. Because the machines can communicate with each other without the need of human commands, this leads to enhanced efficiency with regards to output. Another enormous advantage of the Internet of Things is the ability to save money. The Internet of Things bypasses the need of human intervention and leads to greater efficiency, so companies save a large sum of money from that. So, these are the greatest advantages of the Internet of Things, and they all lead to greater efficiency. So the enhanced communication bypasses the need for human intervention, and this allows them to be fully automated and the machines to be controlled with each other. Because all of this makes the devices more efficient, companies and employees and homeowners can save a lot of money. And because of this is why we want to use the Internet of Things, and this is why, once again, we see great potential in the future of the Internet of Things. However, the disadvantages of Internet of Things. There's also quite a few disadvantages to the Internet of Things, and one of the most noticeable disadvantages of the Internet of Things is the complexity it has. So this is like a very multi-layered system, and because of this complexity, there's a greater chance of failure. This failure in one machine is then compounded to other machines, as all these bunch of different machines are all connected with each other. This means that failure in one machine will lead to the transmission of incorrect data to another machine. Now, because now this other machine receives incorrect information, that machine is going to then transport or transfer and communicate more wrong information to another machine, and so on and so on. And so very quickly, this could whirlwind out of control, and we can see a huge failure in a house or in the machine's integrated machine system. Another great problem with the Internet of Things is the sacrifice of privacy and security. All the data that the machines collect have to be well encrypted, or the possibility of hackers learning intimate details of your personal life increases. With the threat of decreased privacy and security, the concern over safety also rises. Accomplished hackers could now have the opportunity to change important parts of your life without your knowledge. They could maybe look at your medical information, they could look at your bank statements, they could change some of this information because all of these machines are integrated together, and the need for human intervention and human safety nets decreases because humans are not as involved. If the machines have poorly encrypted data, then hackers can have the ability to access this data. However, the future of Internet of Things. What the main goal of the Internet of Things is an integrated home system. This is a system where all home devices and appliances are connected with each other. Through this, they'll all communicate with each other, and they'll all send data together. And because of this could lead to an ideal house where the temperature's right, where these machines do all of these much needed chores and abilities to do stuff on their own. Because of this communication, this will lead to greater efficiency and will save homeowners great time and money. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope you learned a lot about the Internet of Things today, and I hope this could give you some insight